Vince, we are starting the episode today talking about something unplanned and unscripted. And it's so unplanned and unscripted, I hadn't thought about it right now, so I'm just trying to waste time until I can think of something interesting to say. Please save me.
Okay, I'm happy to save you. Hey, everybody, welcome back, Gazeboids, to another episode of Fireball the Gazebo, where John doesn't think more than 5 seconds ahead when he hits the let's record button. As usual, we bring you, very lightly edited and largely unscripted content about RPG games. We're glad you're here this week. We're going to be talking about a little spicy topic I've had up my,
Took us.
Posterior took us, yes, for quite a long time. We're going to be talking about his 5th edition Too Boring. And look, we're not going to get lost in the discussion of this. I've got some real points to make here, John.
Okay, so
I'm excited about it.
This isn't just hot takes for hot takes sake,
No.
And this is
I feel like I can provide an actual unique perspective here, as we'll get into in the main topic.
Right. And we've got over a decade of both between 2014, 2024 of active play running these games and playing as players at the table. So I think we've got some good takeaways and some actual plays to make some takes on how to make 5th edition make up for some of the faults of
right.
it. That's a key takeaway.
That's right. As always, we will also provide a positive, how to continue to grow and not just wallow in the problem, but solve the problem.
Vince, this is episode 9 of Fireball the Gazebo, and
Yes.
we said we were going to go at some point to an every other week schedule, and we have just thrown that to the wind and said we're just going every week until the wheels fall off. And
that's right.
How are you feeling about that so far?
Great so far. We're recording this early, as behind me is like a mess of stuff because today is the last day before I go to Gen Con. So hence,
boy.
we're working it. We're working it. So
I'm excited for next week's episode where I just get to see your armfuls of swag that you bring back, your signed Matt Mercer body pillow and other various accoutrements.
I'm going to be in a long line for that one, but it's going to be good.
Worth it. Worth it. Yeah, so I'm excited for us to talk some recap of Gen Con so I can live vicariously through you, and the Gazeboids can find out if that's something they're interested in. But today, let's talk a little bit newsy news here. Do we got anything interesting in the world of RPGs at Gazeboids?
Oh my God. John.
Off the top row. All right, let's hear it.
I'm coming in with the hottest newsy news item, picking up on a previous thing we talked about, which is John Renegade Game Studios, most well known for being like a sort of shop that does a lot with IPs. So they have like a G.I. Joe and a Transformers and My Little Pony and other things like that. They do RPGs for all of those kinds of IPs. Well, guess what, John? Renegade Game Studios has partnered with Matt Dinneman to do a Dungeon Crawler Carl RPG. Promising to have it be just as insane, full of wild dungeons and crazy loot and all the brutal action that the lit RPG provides.
I assume that Fireball the Gazebo willed this into existence a few episodes ago, and we said this needs to be a thing, and they heard, and they stopped all other work and immediately committed every employee hour to making this happen in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I am pumped. I think it is there has never been a book nor a graphic novel nor a comic book series nor anything of the sort that I think is more set up for a unique and badass RPG experience. I'm just finishing the second book myself. I just finished the second book last night of Dungeon Crawler Carl, and I'm going to have opinions. I'm going to have expectations for this. So they better come in hot and heavy to make this thing feel like that world. So
I mean, I'm interested. I will openly admit I'm not familiar with their other games. Like I like Transformers and stuff like that. I've never played a Transformers RPG. So I'll maybe go look at this studio. So I'll have to see if I can find one of their games and give it a read.
Right. To see how unique based on the universe do they go to the rules to make it feel that way mechanically. That's really
That's right. Are we just literally printing out IP and like an IP shop where we're putting out like low quality stuff. I'm not accusing them of that. I'm just saying there are other industries where that happens.
Yep.
Where people just churn out low quality stuff based on IP to sell because of the name brand, or are they putting a lot of thought into it and actually trying to really well represent the IP in question and bring it to life with a certain amount of verisimilitude? We'll find out.
Right. Yeah. I assume that if every time you transform, you don't go like you don't get the plus to movement or attack, like the sound effect is built in to the mechanics of the game. If it's not, what are we even doing? Right. Yeah. So I assume that that's going to be well on par for Dungeon Crawler Carl. We're gonna talk
No
about
release
Necromancer.
date in the first announcement that I saw yet, but we will stay tuned. We will watch this story closely here at Fireball the Gazebo headquarters.
Yeah, it's just the Daily Planet. Just the globe is spinning on top, and we
got my little hat, got a little press sticker in the side.
We'll be first to market on any update, hot news on Dungeon Crawler Carl, and I will, if that's something pre-order or whatever, I'm going to be first in line. I'm going to be there for that midnight release of Ocarina of Time, but for this game, I'm going to be ready for it, and we'll cover it when it comes out. You got something on here about necromancers, the greatest class in the history of all classes. What about necromancers we got, Vince?
Yeah. This is worth talking about. This game, and this is going to kind of feed into our later topics. That's why I wanted to include this one today. I don't normally talk about like every stupid Unearthed Arcana or playtest thing that Wizards releases, but this one is especially meaningful to me. So, when they released the new Player's Handbook for 2024, they had this like hard rule that everybody got 4 subclasses. Why? Because humans like even numbers. Did it need to be that way? No, it did not. They could have just done different numbers, whatever was appropriate, but they did 4. Well, the problem with that is that, John, it turns out there are 8 specialist wizards. Did you know this? Have you heard of this?
Have you seen this? Have you heard about this? Yeah. As has been since the beginning of time.
Well, there's a lot more than 8 if we go back to the beginning of time. Like if we go back to just whatever, we're not going to talk about it. Anyways, if there's 8 if you're basing on schools, okay? But they could only include 4. And notably, they did not include the Necromancer in the base thing, which I feel is a grave mistake because Necromancers are cool and interesting and awesome. I did just write a whole skirmish war game called Death Wizards based on literally being a Necromancer and living that power fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Now, John, when you're a Necromancer, okay, so John, you're a Necromancer now. Boop, I have knighted the Necromancer. You now have the powers of a Necromancer. What would you expect to be able to do?
What is it you'd say you do here? I would assume that I have the utmost control over the undead, and that grows with me as I grow in power to make more powerful, more strong undead with more access to more abilities and higher CR level undead, and be able to control them to my whim, being able to deal with dead things in a really fun way. That all feels par for the course.
Raising and manipulating and controlling the dead. Right. Yeah. Well, no. Sorry. If your list was farts around with temporary hit points, then you are correct.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, like there's one like your sort of special feature is at level 6, you can kind of be okay with animate dead. It doesn't negate the actual problems with it. Like whatever. This will be more for a discussion later. We'll circle back to this later. Stay tuned. But like most of it is like you get temporary hit point manipulation and you can like not go down and resistance to necrotic damage. And like, I'm fine with all that, but it's just not enough space. It's just not enough. Like if you're a Necromancer, you should have legions of undead. That's what you should be doing. The problem is that the game can't support that.
No, they're trying to keep any form of pet or summon or whatever as far at arm's reach as possible.
Being very tightly controlled. If you have one, it's on this exact mathematical formulae, right? And that's the one thing you can have, and it follows you around, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And that is sacrificing credulity on the anvil, the altar of balance. Nothing more, nothing less. As someone who's like deeply into Necromancers, who owns multiple copies of the 2nd edition Necromancer's Handbook, one of the greatest books ever written. One of them is in plastic with a backer board, so it can't be. That's not the one for looking at. That's the one for keeping, because that's my like mint copy. Then I have one for reading. This is not. Get out of here with this.
Yeah.
Get out of here with this.
it's sad but true, and this is actually going to tie right into our main topic today, is that especially in the wizard subclasses in 2024 D&D, they're like, we are not going to do anything with adding spells. We are only going to give you like a handful over the course of 20 levels of unique twists on why you're slightly better at this than the other people. And for most of the wizard subclasses, it it doesn't dictate any uniqueness to your character. You're just
Right.
like, oh, slightly better at this, or slightly unique take, but it doesn't open up, new avenues for you, and that's the big
Sure.
struggle. So
And you might look at me and say, well, Vince, older Necromancers, like from second edition or something like that, didn't do a lot. Well, third edition Necromancer certainly did. I played many a third edition Necromancer of the various and sundry prestige classes, and certainly those did a lot. But and the answer might be, yeah, you might be right, but there was like a ton of really good necromancy spells, and you could just like
right.
you could raise and manipulate quite a lot of undead
Mhm.
utilizing those spells. So it didn't need a bunch of infrastructure built
No.
around it, right? Just like your special ability is you're really good at this magic, and like you can cast it better, learn it better, stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
And the the spells themselves are there to support you doing this stuff. Yeah, sure. There's
Right.
like crackling bolt of black energy that kills people and withers their soul, as there should be. But there's
As there
also
should
just
be.
like create legions of undead. Yeah, great, good, A+. Or dead animals and stuff. That's also fun.
Yeah, this doesn't feel, as you laid it out, doesn't feel any closer to a necromancer than just like the warlock class that they put in the game,
No, it
where it's
just
just
didn't.
like,
Other than like one ability to kind of be a slightly better with animating dead, it's really not. It's underwhelming. All right.
yeah,
We'll talk about it
yuck.
more later. Let's save it for the main topic.
Okay, you've
I
got
got
one
one
more
more
on.
little newsy item.
Uh-huh.
Um, I was a big fan of we talked about like Critical Role and actual play a little bit last week, and we will do that episode will come.
Mhm.
John and Vince's thoughts on actual play will come eventually.
People are already putting in the comments what they think our thoughts are. Like, we may
Yeah,
have accidentally opened the can a bit too early, but no, it's more in depth than that. We promise. It's not so
it
opaque.
is. There's more to it. Um, but I was a huge fan. So like, even though I don't particularly like watching any of those actual plays, um, the I was a big fan of Vox Machina on Amazon Prime, like the animated series. Okay,
Mhm.
I thought it was really well done. It's compelling. Characters are cool. The voice actors are obviously all great. It's the normal people who play in the game. They're all great voice actors because they are voice actors. Um, and they did a great job. Animation was fun. Story was fast. It's good. And so the Mighty Nine, which is their campaign 2, I think
Mm.
that sounds right to me. Again, I've never listened to any of this stuff in like its actuality. Um, is coming to Amazon as well, and we got the first trailer for it. It looks pretty cool. So this one's a little more far afield. Yeah, obviously there's there, the people in there a little more experience under their belt, different group to some degree here and there, and so yeah, should be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I like these animated series, and to be fair, they are the best representation of D&D in media that I've actually seen. Like those players with those characters, what they're doing, I'm like, oh, I can recognize the spells they use, the things they do, right? Like
Yeah.
they're actually quote unquote in the D&D world, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah, it's the closest thing that we get to like a modern day Record of Lodoss War kind of experience,
Sure.
right? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and in and of itself, that deserves praise. And I just appreciate that it's like, oh, what it does is it allows for editing, uh, because
Sure.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
the biggest fault of Critical Role in my experience. But yeah, I'm excited that they saw enough success with Vox Machina that they are going to bring something out. So I'm excited for that. Vince, did you play a session since last week in your home D&D group, and anything
We
fun happened?
did. We did, as a matter of fact. So and I want to talk about sort of changing of plans and cliffside shenanigans. That's my story this week. So one of the things I do at the end of every game is ask the party what their intentions are next week. So usually the game is ending with them, like calling it a day on some day. Like that is to
Mhm.
say, just like it's the end of the day. Okay, we've gotten back somewhere. It's a logical stopping point, right? And I say, okay, what are you guys planning to do tomorrow or next week when we get together, whatever, right? And so they'll like kind of lay out their plans. They're going to go here, talk to these people. They'd like to explore this, the kind of things they want to do. And I do that just so I can make sure I have all the right stuff prepared and,
Yep,
build out other things, stuff like that. It's a good habit to be in, right? Even if you're playing
absolutely.
through something pre-written, it's just a good habit to be in. That way you can go reread that stuff that's pre-written and have
Yep,
it fresh.
yep.
And But I knew this week I was going to swerve them because they were like, oh, they had all these plans. And I was like, you ain't getting any of that. Because they woke up to a piercing scream echoing throughout the keep, as in fact, and then they all rushed to see what had happened. And of course, there is a dead body laying on the ground as someone has been murdered. Now, there's this sort of running question that they know they accidentally brought back like some kind of shapeshifter who probably is of dubious alignment into the keep. They know they did that. Like they didn't do it intentionally. They found out later because they rescued a person, okay, and brought them back to the keep. And then they went back to the caves and they found that person again. And that person was like, what are you talking about? I've been here the whole time. And it's clearly the real them. Okay. And they were like, uh-oh, well, who'd we bring in the keep, right? So anyways, the shapeshifter, of course, their plan was to replace the Lord of the Keep and all of this. And so over the course of that night, they had executed that plan. And so the PCs spent the night sort of following along the mystery, like finding the different bodies and getting to, and eventually kind of figuring out that it was that he had replaced the Duke. A little quick important note here. They got there quicker than I kind of intended because they were clever, right? And I could have stopped them. Like I could have just thrown up more walls to them to stop them from solving the mystery. But I was like, nah, don't say no to your players. Okay. If they're clever and they're going to figure something out, let them. Right. Let them figure it out. Good for them. Right? Even if it's earlier than you intended. So they did. And that then led to like, since they had uncovered the shapeshifter, the doppelganger, who was a greater doppelganger, so very scary. The doppelganger's like, well, the jig's up. It figures out that they know. And so it jumps out the window. Now it can like climb and scamper on things, right? So this keep is on a big hilltop. So picture like a 50-foot wall of a keep and then a very vertical hilltop down beside that. That's like 150 feet. So you're talking about 200 feet to the ground, right?
All right.
It goes out and starts like scampering down, right? A little spider. It wasn't a spider, but you get it. And then two of the PCs, or a couple of PCs, three of them maybe, were like, we got to go after him. And they're like, some of them were like, let him go. And some of them were like, we got to go after him. So that this kind of thing happens. So three of them run out, get to where they can access the outside real quick, throw a rope over and start running down, scaling down after him. One of the PCs has a climb sort of capability themselves. So, like as a rogue with both a climbing capability, like a 95% climb wall. So they just like, they just went down after him. Right. Okay. Now, this thing is not one to be trifled with. Like, if cornered, this greater doppelganger is very scary. So they get into a fight with him about 140 feet in the air, okay, on the side of this cliff.
On the side of the cliff.
Which
the
is
rogue's
great.
just trying to like kick him with his one free foot.
Yeah, like people are like balancing and stabbing and all of this stuff. And like the climbing guy's like sticking to the side of the building and like trying to fight and so on. Just like throwing stuff at him, which is fine. Like, okay, all good. No one's out there like using a two-handed sword or something crazy, right? Sure. It's all very fine. So two people come, the roguey person who stuck to the wall is like fighting. And two more fightery types scale down on a rope. Okay. The greater doppelganger looks up, sees this, and is like, okay. And just walks up to this above them, like 5 feet above them, since it can climb the side and just cuts the rope.
Cuts the rope.
Like, you guys didn't think this through.
Right.
Okay. That sends them. Now, fortunately, this isn't like a sheer drop. They're like they're like rolling down the hill. So it was survivable. They took a lot of damage, but they were both conscious at the bottom. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, it's the scene from Black Sheep where Chris Farley just continuously rolls down the hill and then rolls down the hill and rolls down the hill.
Right. So that left the one little rogue fighting this thing and got punched. So then the other rogue comes out and helps. Okay.
Oh, he's like, oh shit.
And the one rogue, while this other one's coming down, they arrive, and then the one rogue gets punched unconscious and is bleeding to death. And is now going to go tumbling and will definitely die.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other rogue tries to grab him, holds him against the wall, succeeds. Like it was a couple of checks, right? They had to make like a dexterity and a strength check to both grab them and then hold them against the wall so they didn't slide down the hill. And while we were playing, I was like, well, I'm going to kill a character here. Like this is going to happen. You guys have made choices and somebody's going to die if you guys aren't careful.
And I think the key thing here is this was not one decision that was made that
Right.
led to this. There was like a checklist of 3 or 4 all poor decisions that led to
Right. They
this.
could have just like ran out the keep and met him at the bottom.
Yeah.
Right. Or like done, which is one of the things. The paladin did that, by the way, and eventually came around trucking in at the very end. I was like, oh, you're here. But at any rate, but nobody died. They were all
Okay.
okay. But afterward, I asked them how they felt about it. And all the people who were involved in that scene had a great time because it was really exciting.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And like the guy who almost died, he was like, I thought I was going to die. I really did. And I didn't like. I'm not one like I'll fudge rolls here and there. That's fine. But this wasn't rolls that I could fudge. This was like players making rolls, right? It
Yeah.
was all on them.
Yeah.
And I just want to say the specter of death. These are like level 5-ish characters. It's variants, obviously, it's a second edition. But the specter of death hung so heavily, and yet there was so much fun. It made the scene feel real and like really exciting and tense because it was fighting on the side of a cliff face. Like, of course, it's crazy. They decided to pull a Stallone cliffhanger, and then were surprised when somebody fell off a cliff, right? So like, anyways, it made me really appreciative of like quick, simple checks and the importance of the specter of death, right? Even when it doesn't happen, people feel like it's real. We talked about that back in the death episode, and this was just a wonderful proof of it, right?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a dramatic moment, right? It feels like a
Yes.
scene. It feels like a scene directly out of Princess Bride, right? That scene could have taken place in Princess Bride, and it would be a dramatic, fun action scene. And that's kind of what we're going for in those moments.
They literally
of the
cut the
game.
rope in the Princess Bride,
Right,
and
right.
then Wesley's then on the side of the cliff,
Yeah.
right? Yes.
That needs to be. It needs to be a part of the game, and then not to fear getting themselves into those moments. That it's strictly we made a poor decision in hindsight. In the moment, you can't always pick the best decision, but when a couple of those happen in a row, you're like, oh no, this was bad.
Right.
But still, they're still smiling and while they're rolling dice. That's great. I had a not totally dissimilar experience in my recent session. In my campaign, we are kind of escaping the city that we're a part of, and we need to search out this long dead wizard's kind of his arcane research.
Sure.
And this
Classic.
this takes place down in like a desert kingdom where it's a much more rough and brutal, and slavery is a thing. It's just a nasty place in general. We hook up with this merchant caravan that we can kind of go with them, safety in numbers kind of a thing. But we're not too certain about them because half of this merchant leader's employees are big gnolls, and they are brutal. And from our small bit of interaction with them, we're like, we're probably not going to be able to trust these guys on this week-long journey. So we needed to make ourselves ready to be able to get away from them if we needed to. And part of that was we needed to buy some form of a camel or a donkey or a horse or an elephant or something, so we could carry all of our own water, our own supplies. If we needed
some kind of pack animal, yes,
some kind of pack animal. So we did a bunch of shopping in the kind of the borderlands town to figure out what we had access to, and come to find out, donkey's the best bang for your buck in terms of how many gold
sure.
they cost versus how much they can carry. So we bought a mule.
Look, man, if it's good enough for Jesus, okay, I mean, it's good enough for you.
Exactly. In a manger. We didn't buy the manger though. We probably should have. But we bought a mule. We immediately named him Moscow. We learned all about him. He had a fun little personality to him. He had his big floppy ears that he liked to swat the flies with. And as we're traveling, things are feeling more and more precarious with our traveling troop. And the lead gnoll, this guy is the alpha of the gnoll pack, right? He's basically
not a real thing, but continue. I mean, maybe it is for gnolls, but it's not for wolves. But go ahead.
Oh gosh, are we getting into that? That was all based off. All that research was based off of captive animals and zoos, and that influenced
flawed research. Yes, correct. There's no such thing as alphas and wolves. I really hate it. Continue.
Yes. So he was in charge. He was the lead guy, and basically he oversaw all the other gnolls, and they basically submitted to whatever his orders were. Well, he basically inferred in a couple of situations that he was going to eat us because he was hungry and stuff, but he wasn't actively aggressive. We didn't start a fight because we're like, there's like a dozen of these gnoll guards. We can't do this here. But one of the things we learned about in our travels was how nasty some of the the fauna are in this desert environment. About, it's basically Australia, right? Where all the little things are the things that could kill you. So one night, the cleric and I go out and we're looking for a bug, specifically a centipede, a snake, or a spider that can kill. Rolled really, really well on his survival check, found this nasty spider, was able to get it into one of my potion jars because it's tiny and blue. And then I proceeded to have my unseen servant in the middle of the night walk it over to where that Noah was sleeping, tip it upside down, and shake it vigorously over his bare chest. And the DM didn't make us roll any checks for it. He was just like, you had the idea, you caught the spider, you were able to get over there in the middle of the night. There's no reason for him not to believe this. And it should have killed him, but he's this big 8-foot tall gnoll with this high constitution. And so he didn't have him die, but he was basically put out of commission for the rest of the trip. And it effectively did what we were trying to do and kept them off our backs. The very next night, after we felt so proud of ourselves, a huge sandstorm hits, and a bit of like a kind of salt cap that kind of forms on the top of some of these sand dunes flies up, and it hits our poor mule in the butt, and the mule goes running off in the distance in the middle of the sandstorm. Now, we knew very well that following this was a terrible idea, but we had gotten so close to this mule for no apparent reason. He was one of us from here on out. So we ran off into the middle of the sandstorm, found it being half wrapped up by this big constrictor snake that had come out of the dunes. And we like put ourselves in terrible positions to try to save our mule. Our cleric almost gets eaten alive, and we're already down one player. Usually our group is four PCs, and we had one guy that couldn't make it, so we only had 3. So
Gotcha.
Because 4 is the best number of players, and I will fight to the death on that. But 4 down to 3 is a big jump in the number of players. And he was our rogue, our DPS. So we were kind of struggling, but we made it through. Poor Moscow made it out. He had a little hunk of his hind end that didn't make it back. But it was just a fun way of having us make a decision. We knew very well that we should not have gone out there. And then, are we going to be able to find our way back to the merchant caravan after we've just done this work to make it safer for ourselves, to make it to the city to the south? So it was just a fun little course of events that we made active decisions, and that directly influenced how the remainder of the session went. And we had a great time.
I love it so much. And it shows the power of pets, by the way, like things PCs actually get attached to. These things really freaking matter, right? Like we talked about NPCs that people get attached to, but even just like pets, animals, locations, stuff like that really matters. Like when the PCs get attached to things, it motivates them to make decisions. It makes the world real. Right. Okay. Because if my dog ran off into that storm, I would chase it.
Yeah. And you knew the whole time this was a dumb idea. I shouldn't do this, but you're going to do it anyway.
That's right.
And there was no second guessing. Like the second, as soon as he ran off and he was just out of sight, the cleric's like, I'm going after him. And I see him start to run. I cast Long Strider immediately on the cleric, knowing this is going to happen. Like there was no conversation. Right. We didn't talk it through. And,
we're doing this. Let's go.
We're doing this. And it created a more dramatic event, because then the fight in and of itself now has a different layer to it, right? Because now we're also trying to save our pet and putting ourselves in worse situations. And this snake was nasty. And he wrapped us up. He scurried under the sand and we couldn't find him. He made the sand kind of rise up and knocked us on our butt. So it made a more dramatic fight, as opposed to typically when you have a group of PCs and one monster, those fights tend to be boring.
Sure.
So
nice. I love it. That's so good. Yeah, man. Pets, horses, dogs, donkeys, all of this stuff, it matters. Friends, NPCs, like get them in there, get them talking, give them personality, as you talked about with like him flapping his little ears to clear the flies. Like it doesn't take much, man. No. You don't need 10 pages of backstory. A few little details will be like, people will be like, I just met this person or this animal and I will die for them. Okay. Like that is it.
Yep. And as a DM, you track that, you use it, but you don't use it against them, right? Like this was
don't
a way.
Abuse it. Right.
Yeah, don't abuse it. Don't make every situation like this is a detriment by us being attached to this thing, because we, like But you can use it in fun, different ways, and that was a good one. All right, we ready to dig into 5th edition, and are we talking specifically? Are we talking all of 5th edition since 2014 when it launched up to 2024 and the evolution? Or are we focusing on any particular thing today?
I want to cover the sweep and scope of it, the whole thing.
Okay.
And I want to start with some story time.
Ooh, story time.
Okay. So, John, the 5th edition launched in 2014, right?
Mm-hmm.
It too much excitement and fanfare, and I think it was a very popular edition of D&D. I think it was, sales wise, it's probably the most popular by count, certainly, probably the highest, even adjusting for inflation as far as sales numbers go. I don't know. I haven't seen the internal stuff. But so I consulted on this edition and its creation, working with it and the people who were making it for a couple years beforehand. So I first started getting involved with this in late 2011, 2012 is when I got involved. Okay.
And so the Gazeboids know your name is in the inside cover of the 2014 Player's Handbook. That's right. This is you setting the stage of anything that you don't like or we don't like about 5th edition, we can blame you, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay,
yes.
Got it.
I mean, there's a lot, there's stuff I'll take credit for because there's things that I actively gave feedback on that I saw change, and I like how they changed. Not a ton of it, but some. And there's, I was just part of a large group. There was 8 consultants and, obviously all the designers and developers working on the thing. I was but one voice amongst many.
Okay.
And
you're hedging right now, Vince. You're hedging.
No, I'm just flatly setting the reality of the thing. But the point is, the reason I'm telling that story is not to brag or something. I'm telling it because it changed a lot over the time before launch. Okay. And when we first started looking at it in its earliest incarnations, it didn't look very much at all like what it eventually came to look like. I would say it looked and felt a lot more like earlier editions of D&D.
By earlier, you mean more like 3rd
AD&D,
edition?
2nd edition, stuff like that.
Oh,
okay.
Interesting. But still far removed from 4th edition, though.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
Think of it more like if you took those editions and rewrote them on a more modern frame, that's kind of what you would get, right? Now, I think where it ended is probably more like a cleaned up version of late 2nd / probably 3rd, put onto a more modern frame. It draws a lot more on 3rd edition than it does on other things, but it does draw on all the editions. There's some of every edition in there. Okay.
And if we're taking a 1,000-foot view of this and we're talking about a new edition of D&D, I think that all of us would agree that that's a good general approach to take. You want it to still feel and to pull in and learn from and have those connections to the history of the game, update it, make it more modern, make it more streamlined, make it just better, right? That's a good way to start things.
To a point, yeah, 100%. One of the problems with working with a legacy product like D&D, this is true for Warhammer and stuff as well, is there's only so much you can change it before it's not the thing anymore.
Sure.
When legacy products exist for a really, really long time, there becomes this core of indelible features that you cannot move or change without it no longer being the thing. That's where 4th edition went wrong. It changed too much, and that's why enough people were like, well, this isn't D&D anymore. It's not a universal thing. Everybody has a different line in the sand. My point is there's some kind of electron cloud of stuff in the middle, right? That if you alter it, you risk destroying the identity of the thing. It's no longer that thing. Okay. And this is true for in other media as well with legacy products, right? There's a lot of people who feel that Star Trek, the what do they call it? The alternate universe one with what's his name as the
Chris Pratt? Or not Chris Pratt.
Chris Pine.
Chris Pine. Oh, so close.
Yes. What's the name of that universe? Kelvin universe. There you go. With that one just isn't Star Trek because it's an action movie thing, right? It's running around playing sabotage and stuff. Not thoughtful.
It's Star Trek Fast and the Furious edition. I get it.
Right. So you lose some element of it. Again, that's not true for everybody. Some people I'm sure love those. There are elements of some of those movies I really like. I thought the 3rd one was actually pretty decent. And at times, but at any rate, the point is that I'll give you an easy example. I don't think you could make an edition of D&D and call it D&D if it didn't have strength, dexterity, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. as the 6 fundamental stats.
Or use the D20 system. There's another
You
one.
could not use it. Probably depends on what
Right.
you do with that D20. There's got to be a D20 involved.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Probably for attack rolls and things like that. Yeah, sure.
Right. Yeah. I'm saying if you ran to the percentage system of like Call of Cthulhu
right. If you use a
something,
dice pool, that's going to feel wrong. Correct.
Right.
Yeah. 100% I agree. Right. And like, you might think, well, that's just ephemera. It's just stupid stuff. And like I saw somebody commented in one of our previous episodes, like, well, they should cut Constitution. And I'm like, you can't.
No.
It's part of D&D.
Yeah.
It has to be there. Maybe not for you, person who left that comment, if you're watching this again. But like, the problem is you're hacking at, like a tree. Okay, you've got the bark, you got the heart of the tree, right? Or whatever, right? That's where the rings grow out from or whatever. That's like you're cutting into the heart of the tree, right? You can like prune branches,
right?
And the tree will keep growing. Okay. You can pull bark off and you risk the tree getting sick, but it will grow and the bark will grow back. But if you chop at that trunk, that heart of the tree, you risk the thing falling over and dying. That's my point. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I say all that to say that, like, when I look at the journey that initial D&D version went on, from its like alpha initial test that we were working with and consulting on and stuff like that, to what eventually came out, it changed a lot as they were trying to find the identity of the thing. Okay. Whereas they didn't do the same thing with 2024 D&D.
No.
It never changed identity. It got flatter. Okay. Like, there was no big swings. They didn't start by saying, we're going to try to do something pretty radical here. Okay. In any ways, they were like, no, that was their whole thing. They're like, nope, we're just fixing some bumps, smoothing out the road. That was the whole pitch, the whole selling point, backwards compatibility, all of this stuff. Right.
Right.
And I think that as a strategy, because they were worried about risking their current audience, I honestly think it backfired straight in their face. This isn't a thing to talk about, sales at WotC, but I don't think it was very positive for the sales numbers. I think all signs we've seen have not been positive.
Yeah, it's one of those examples of this could have been an email, kind of a thing. Right. Like, it was just like a rata.
Your edition update was an FAQ.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it was. It was in a video game world, it's the post-launch patch that should have just balanced out some things, and it was touted as being a new edition, but it was just an FAQ baked in. Yeah, I knew things were going to be rough when I was first doing my research on it, and it was all the things that changed in 2024 edition was like 2 pages of bullet points. That was it.
Sure.
That was the whole game.
Sure.
That was changed.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, that's it. It was very safe, right? It felt like 5th edition, the first. I mean, because after 4th edition, Wizards was not in a great spot with this IP. Like, it was struggling.
It was bad. It was at a nadir, much the same as it had been at the end of the 90s. At the end of the 90s, it was at a real low point. It was not the biggest selling RPG.
Right.
At the end of the 90s. That's rough. That's one of the few times since its inception, basically, in popularity. We'll call it since 1983, when it hit its first peak. It's one of the few times that it happened. Right.
Yep. And we can say that in the grand scheme of things, that's actually a healthy thing. It's healthy to not have the monopoly and to have someone nipping at your heels and doing it better and being more nimble and agile in their adjustments.
That's right. It doesn't deserve that first spot. It's got to earn that, same as any other game.
Right. And I'm curious how it's going to shake out over the next 6 to 24 months in Pathfinder 2 versus D&D 2024.
Sure.
In just strictly in the numbers in that kind of standpoint. And plus, we've got other big hitters that have entered the market now too.
That's right.
With MCDM
Daggerheart and stuff like that. Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah. There's no rest for the wicked here. And the timing on this edition means that they can't do something big very quickly. And so they have to live in this little dinghy that they've built for a while now. And so we'll see where that goes.
I'll be honest with you, John. If I was internal right now, I would be willing to bet there's a whiteboard with 6th edition D&D written on it. And like, how do we get here? Yeah. Like, and somebody's trying to do a project planning roadmap for that.
If they're smart,
with like a 3-year time horizon.
Yep.
But that's not what this is about. Okay. Now, why do I tell that whole historical story? Because the history in my mind over the one of the things about those early playtests is they felt more like the earlier editions with things being wild and inequitous. Like uh my whole group that I was running through a test with, they died.
They died.
Because they did something stupid and suffered the consequences of quite rampantly, right? Like
Yeah.
they went into a dungeon, they did something dumb, the dungeon did what dungeons do and killed them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to, and that was like in a pre-written thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's hard to imagine that occurring in the current game. The arc of 5th edition has largely been one of flattening. I think that the arc of the past many years of D&D, I think 4th edition is in this and so on and so forth, going all the way back to 3rd. The arc of the thing is a flattening. What I mean by that is started slowly and then it has really accelerated.
Yeah.
It's a push toward balance and similar play experiences. Everybody needs to be able to have similar play experiences.
Right.
Okay. There are upsides to this, but there are a lot of downsides to this. I think more down than up.
Yeah. Which is like, if you think about the core tenets of what we're doing here, is we're telling a unique story that will never be told and sitting around a table with an experience that no one else will ever have in the history of mankind, nor ever again, because it's purely unique and it's tailored
Right.
to those of us sitting here. And to want to make it a flattened universal experience feels so antithetical to the point.
The obsession with balance amongst a lot of the community has always been very strange to me
uh,
in a cooperative game.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Like I understand with competitive games, you know, you've got like some online fighter or something, or like even Warhammer, you know, obviously.
Or Magic.
But or Magic. Yeah, sure. Like again, I like Commander's not balanced at all. At all. Okay.
No.
And it's their most popular format.
Right.
Because you just find the group in your pod
Right.
and you set accordingly and you go. It's not balanced. You could rock up to a pod and somebody turn one could just be like, bop, 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 I play these 7 things. And you're like, what?
Right.
I play a land.
Go ahead.
And it's tapped.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But that's the key thing with the difference, I think, is that in a game like Magic, we can sit around and we play a 1-hour game or less in that situation where they drop their hand turn 1. And then I can make my decision to not play against that deck, not play with that person. I can adjust on the fly. The commitment to a D&D campaign is much more far reaching, and you don't always know those imbalances, or how this is going to shake out for weeks or months. And there you're so invested at that point. So I understand the goals of making the fun across the table balanced. If that is your goal, is that fun feels open, available, and balanced for all players, DM included, then we're on the right track. That doesn't equate to mechanics as much as it does in a game where you're actively fighting against your opponent.
Yeah, I mean, time and time again, I see in games when they get an obsession with balance, the natural inclination is to flatten the game. Okay. To make it so you can't, like, to sand it down and sand it down and sand it down. Let me give you some easy examples. Okay. Let's go back to our earlier story about the Necromancer. Okay. In 3rd edition, I played a Pale Master. Do you remember this? This prestige class? All right. It ruled. At any rate, it was like a necromancy type class. Started as a wizard, whatever. Knew it was going to be a long game, high level game. I think we ended up going to almost 30, 28, 29, 30, somewhere in there.
Ooh,
okay.
That's high.
And my character really came together at like 15th level. And I had a whole party of undead at my beck and call that I rolled around with. Okay. Now this is extreme. I'm not sure I even like this is the kind of thing that should be reined in. Okay.
Yeah.
But like I had a ghoul who was a full-fledged rogue of basically like our level. I had vampire wizard twins who were like 1 level below me who followed me around. I had a mummy cleric. I had a dread knight fighter. I could summon basically like my level's worth of shadows more or less anytime I wanted. So, just like swarms of shadows, which are really potent in third edition, if you remember, with the way they drain strength on their hits. So like, we fought a dragon and I was like, 19 shadows.
How do you challenge that? How do you challenge that party?
Okay.
The monsters have to kill a party before they can deal with the party.
Correct. I had like a second party. Yes.
Yeah.
Literally, I had a whole second party, right? Resolving my turns was very, like, I had everything set up to, like, just go down the list. Like, I had to be very quick. Like, he's doing this, he resolves the attacks. He casts this, he does this, he does this. Like, you know what I mean? I had, like, all the sheets laid out so I could just resolve them straight in line. And I resolved my turns faster than a lot of the players playing one character because I took it so seriously. And most people wouldn't, right? I'm not saying that as a positive example. I'm saying that that's what the game allowed. That was within the scope of the game, that you could be that insane. Okay. Now, at any point, the GM could have been like, hey, man,
you're making my life suck right now.
Right. How did you challenge us? Oh, it was easy. We almost died like 100 times. Okay. Because we would get like things thrown at us. Like he would throw Mordenkainen's disjunctions at us and attack us with black slots and everything else. Right. Like, I mean, he didn't hold back. That was the key. Like how do you challenge them? You throw, like the Fantastic Four are powerful, but Galactus is stronger,
Sure. I mean, there's a whole argument there of that the amount of power that he's got to throw at you is actually far more than you can take just to be able to threaten your army of undead. But then the rest of your party, if gone toe to toe with those things, they're just going to get squashed because of how much more powerful they have to be. And so it's a really rough situation. However, that was also prior to the age of something that I think was a very good change. How it shakes out and what is the most fun or balanced way to do it, and that is action economy. In that day and age, action economy, what you did with your character there, if you wanted to boil down to why it was powerful, was abusing action economy.
I duplicated out my actions, right? Yes, absolutely, of course.
And to this day, you want to talk about the most powerful characters in any edition, including 5th edition D&D, 2nd edition Pathfinder. It's the characters that can manipulate or abuse, if you want to use a bad term, I don't like that term, action economy. And that's exactly what you did. So if you can find a way to, keep that under wraps, there's no problem with you having or your level of undead, right? But you're still restricted in how many of them you can manipulate in a given round based on your actions.
See, I hate that. I hate action economy. I think action economy is the devil. All right.
Because it goes off a cliff so quickly if you can't say this is what you can do in a turn.
Mike Merle's put a great thing up about the bonus action, why you think it's crap. Okay. And basically it was put in the game to actually put some kind of action economy around things like a barbarian raging and stuff like that, right? Things that used to take no action now take some action. Bonus actions were put in there to capture these little things that some classes would do that took no action, but then made them really good at multi-classing. Right?
It's free.
So you be a fighter, you take a level of barbarian. It doesn't chew away your ability to attack. You can just like rage for free and then go, right? So they wanted to have something to like actually, so you couldn't take multiples of those classes or start getting multiples of those abilities and start like turning on all four.
Turning off.
Yeah.
All they need is a keyword that's similar to channeling that you just allow them not to stack, right?
Sure.
I mean, there's answers to this.
Of course, but they went with the bonus action thing, and he talked about why it was a complete failure. I tend to agree with him because the second you create that hole, nature abhors a vacuum. Okay, and now every class that doesn't, if you build something and you're like in 5th edition, you're like, well, I don't have anything to do with my bonus action. Oh, well, that's a bad character. You failed, and now you're not equal anymore again with the other people who are doing more stuff than you perceived. Oh, did I mention there's also a reaction now? Oh, well, guess what? I also have a thing to do every round with my reaction. Do you? You don't? You loser.
There's plenty of options. Just pick one.
So my point is chasing this dragon of balance is like a really, really long, bad road, right? And even as we went into the action economy, we just created more problems for ourselves. Okay, because now everybody has to have 5 things they do every round, and combat takes an hour and a half. Okay. One of the like when I look around at like what's flattened, go back to like a second edition Necromancer. Okay, you could raise a lot of undead, but they were just the undead out of the book. Like, congratulations, you can have a horde of skeletons. Okay, that's a lot of actions. Are those actions worth anything? Is a skeleton with 7 hit points and swinging with a +3 bonus and doing a flat D6 damage, is that actually doing much? I mean, sometimes, maybe.
Yeah.
Right? But oftentimes, no. They're going to become, bone meal on the ground real fast against a lot of monsters, right?
Sure.
So like my point is just not it's not just the actions and tamping that down, but like the flatness that makes it boring. When you sand everything down, you get rid of the rough edges that let people grab on and find something interesting. When we moved all of the balance from the job of the party and the GM to the game system itself,
sure,
that's the original sin. Because in my, like, when I DM Rifts is the least balanced concerned game in history. Okay, we'll talk about it in a future episode. I can't wait to do a Rifts episode. Okay. The game is insane. John, these are both valid characters I can play in this game. Number 1, a homeless guy.
Nice.
He can kind of drive a car and has a gun.
Okay.
That's character option number 1.
And a shopping cart. I assume he's got a shopping cart.
Could have. Yeah, sure. Possibly.
Okay.
Maybe. Not automatic.
I kind of want to play this guy now. I can feel all the fun things I can put in my shopping cart that I take with me all the time.
Absolutely. Also existing in this world as a player choice is a Cosmo Knight, which is the best way I could describe it is if you took like Green Lantern or somebody like that and ramped them up to like by an order of magnitude. Like, they're meant to fight fleets of spaceships. Like, if a fleet of Star Destroyers pull into your system and you're an innocent planet, you call on the noble Cosmo Knight and it goes, it's what's her name? Captain Marvel.
Oh, sure.
Where she just plows through spaceships and you're like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Those are both characters you could play theoretically in the same game.
I'm for that. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously, if you just let players go nuts in that game, you're going to have chaos on your hands, right? But basically, every GM I've ever played with in Rifts, myself and others, they say, build a character out of these books.
Okay.
Where they know they have control. Or build a character that ends up about these numbers. You have about this much mega damage, about this much to hit, this many attacks, and so on. And if you set those, guess what? You get relatively balanced characters while still allowing for everything else. It's in the hands by putting it in that, by expecting the game to do all the work. Okay. And freeing the players and the characters. And by the way, it hasn't. Look, when 5th edition launched, or even the new one, there's like conjure minor elementals, and it was crazy off the charts what you could do, and everybody started doing it, and then they had to go and nerf it, right? You're still chasing this.
Yeah.
Okay. When you batten down everything and leave a few proud nails sticking up,
which, by the way, you can never not have those proud nails. That will always exist.
They become the thing that everybody builds to. Whereas if you just have a board of nails, you can walk across it fine without hurting yourself.
Oh, wow. Mind blown. It's like sleeping on a bed of nails instead of sleeping on one nail. What? Yeah. And if it's, when you do this, you've fostered an environment of searching for nails, right?
That's right.
And that's part of the excitement of what do you spend your time doing in between gaming sessions to get your fix of D&D or thinking about D&D. That's where the tide has turned, is to trying to find the things you can abuse, those proud nails. And if you don't believe me, just go do a little bit of Google searching or YouTube searching and see what comes up.
Yeah, most D&D content is people doing like optimized builds and like broken builds and stuff like this. Yeah.
Is this class the best one? And 2024? What's the best version of Ranger in 2024? What's the best multi-class 2024? Those videos have 10 times the views of the same creators' other videos. Like it's just the way that it's
Which
gone.
tells me the Gazeboids aren't sharing videos enough. Hit like, hit subscribe, help other people find the video. Let's get real content up there.
We're not min-maxing over
Not that
here.
that isn't real
We're
content.
telling
Those
you
guys
to
are
play.
perfectly cool.
We're telling you to play a hobo with a shopping cart. That's what we want.
That's right.
That's the fun class. And I mean, I think if we want to dig deeper into this, what I think that comes down to is their goal of trying to flatten, to create the on-ramp for new players, the new player experience to be as smooth and easy as possible. And what you've done in that is you've taken all responsibility out of the hands of your dungeon master. Listen, we can all play. We can all have a good time. Anyone can start this game for the first time. You can run the game yourself for the first time because we've taken all responsibility off your plate. We'll manage it all. Just trust us. And then that creates an entire generation of people that when a question is brought up at your table, the first thing you do is you open the book or you open your tablet or you open your phone. You look for a physical answer in the book. And when
Control F.
When we played 20 years ago, we never opened the book to solve an interesting situation or to make a call on the fly. It was always
if you didn't remember a rule that you knew was there, you went and looked in the book. But if it was a novel situation, you just did what I did, which was like, I don't know, make a dexterity check.
Yep. Well, we'll figure it out, you know? And it's created an environment of leaning so heavily on the rules. And then it's a chicken and egg situation where the rules have to be clearly defined and simple enough. And to make them simple enough, they all need to be very basic and flat. And if they're basic and flat, then you've pulled all the magic out of the game.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And like when I think about what's flat, look at like magic items is a great example. The existence of attunement slots, period. Barf. Yell. Awful. But like magic items in general are so flat and boring in what they do. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's like 7 magic items that do anything interesting in the whole game. And the things everybody hunts for, the things that don't take attunement slots that happen to be, again, mildly interesting. Yeah. And then you have the same 7 magic items on everyone. And then now in this new edition, they changed a lot of those fun ones around. So magic itself, we did a whole episode on this, right? Of like why magic is boring and bad now and all the pressure on wizards to become less interesting. God forbid they end an encounter or do something useful. Right. Okay. You cast spells, your opponents make your save, and then you move on with your turn. I mean, just use cantrips.
Vince, are you saying that if you were like a level 20 wizard that spent multi lifetimes researching and become an expert in all the magics of the universe, and you are harnessing them down into an interesting magic item that now holds your name for the rest of time, and someone finds it in a desert 20 years after you die, that all it should do is be like, it's basically the same as casting magic missile. Like,
right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's your legacy? That's it?
One of the funniest things to me is in the 2024 Player's Handbook, they have a bunch of pictures of like famous wizards doing magic stuff. Okay. I don't know if you've seen this art in the PHP, but it'll be like, so it's like all the wizards and their sort of signature spells, and they're kind of using them, right? And it's like a warlock jumping against a big kraken with like using the Hunger of Hadar, and people are using little acid spells on a troll, and just stuff like this, right? Mm-hmm. And in every one of those pictures, I'm like, those wizards are dead. 5 seconds after this picture get taken, that wizard is splatted against the wall. Okay. Every one of those creatures is more than a match for those wizards. If they don't have their plot armor, they're dead instantly. That little acid splash is not stopping that troll, and it's going to rip you limb from limb.
Yeah.
Okay. And you will do nothing about it except die. All right.
But it's a sweet picture.
But it's a sweet picture. But neat that we record. There's a bunch of pictures of wizards about to be murdered in the PHB. Okay.
Oh man, that's just I just want to have like that as like a flip book short on like Instagram of just like with Sarah McLachlan's Arms of the Angel playing, where you just get to see all the pictures of the about to be dead wizards.
What happens next? Oh God. That poor gnome. Oh. Yeah, I mean, all of these things. Now, have just been sanded down to the point where there's nothing really interesting to grab. And the problem with that, John, is that it then means the game hits a static place where if you've played a class and a subclass, you will never play that again. There's no different experience you will have.
Oh, yeah. It is, and it's scary when that moment you have that realization, which is when that moment hit for us. We went back to Pathfinder First Edition, and then we went to Pathfinder Second Edition, and now enough time has passed, and 2024 is out that we're like, okay, we're going to give it another go round here, and I'm already feeling it. It's just like you are just like every other ranger that's ever lived, because there is no ability for you within the interesting pages of the tomes for you to create something unique mechanically, because it's got to be streamlined.
You are on rails. It's an amusement park ride now. You got to keep your hands inside, right? And what that also means that like certain levels have certain experiences and get certain things, and like it's neat the first time you ride the ride, right? It's like, oh, I got to level 7, I get my special thing, I get to do my special boy thing now, which was always going to I was always going to get at level 7. It was always at level 7. It was never going to be any other time. It means that the game is only interesting in the certain space of levels between like basically, to be generous, like 4 and 12 or 13. Okay. Right. Anything below that, you're not you yet. You're not actually the class you are yet, basically, in a lot of cases. Anything above that, we talked about why high level goes off the rails so easily, right? And like level 1 and 2 is, oops, we might accidentally die, and we're not even our characters yet.
Right. We're all different shades of the same guy right now.
Right. And then level 4 through 12 is like, oh, D&D is fun. And then nobody plays past that anyways. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
So like, there's no real threat of death most of the time. There's no real, you're going to get a cool, really unique, interesting magic item unless the GM makes it. All that's been taken like and assumed that you're not doing that. My point is that like there was a great video from Folding Ideas where he talked about one of my favorite videos he's ever done, where he talked about the people going back to WoW Classic or whatever it was called, right? When they relaunched the server that was just like original WoW.
Yep. Yeah. WoW Classic.
And like I played World of Warcraft over its existence a couple times, played it some, left, came back a couple times, whatever, right? And one of the things he talked about was what I call the difference of like having to make your own fun versus having the game tell you what the fun is. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people went back to WoW Classic because they wanted that sense that like they were supposed to go to do and find the weird things. Right. That they had to make some of their own fun. It wasn't just getting on the ride and then experiencing it as it took you through the roller coaster. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that that's ultimately what where we're at now. We can solve some of this. That's what I want to talk about for the rest. But I do want to also talk about a strength, because I don't want people to feel like I'm being overtly negative. One of the things that has been interesting and that they have done well is making like the various and sundry martial classes, but especially like fighters and rogues and stuff like that, and get monks, way more interesting over time.
Yep.
Expanding what those classes can do and can mean and should be and can be has been a net positive in my mind.
Yep.
Okay. Whether it's things like psionic warriors and rogues, or just like, the battle masters and everything else. Like there's a bunch of good examples. I am super for all of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
I just don't think we needed to kick the other side in the nards.
Yeah, that was part of it. That's how we bring them in, is we rein everything in from both ends, right. And they went too far in 4th edition where everyone had the same amount of options at their disposal. So
yeah, you all felt like you were basically playing the same class. There was like minor mechanical differences, but for the most part, you were all playing the same thing.
Yeah. So yes, your fighter had the same amount of options at any given level, literally any level in a combat. They could do the same amount of options of things as a wizard, and that is ridiculous.
Right.
And so they learned something from that, I think. And I think 5th edition D&D was the first edition where that truly felt like they got something figured out. There were sprinkles of it in 3.5 and Pathfinder, but it wasn't quite fully kind of evolved yet at that point. And now we're seeing that in Pathfinder's second edition, that they took learning from what fifth edition did well, and they've implemented a lot of that as well. So now that feels very similar. So I agree. It's a
And I
big
don't
thing.
want to just say it's like it's easy to point out flaws, but I do want to say it's challenging to make a mass market game that's like easy to learn but has a lifetime to master capability. Like what I'm effectively saying, to summarize my complaint, is in bringing down the skill floor, they brought down the ceiling, or the fun floor. They brought down the fun ceiling or skill ceiling, or however you want to think about it as well. They moved the whole bar down when what they should have sought to do was drop the floor and expand the ceiling.
Right.
Right. And that's a lot harder.
It is.
Like I'll openly admit that is a higher challenge, okay? But it's not impossible. And this new edition, this 2024, could have been a chance to do that. But
yeah, and I'm thinking back to your experience behind the scenes in the 2014 edition, where it feels like so much of that R&D time and the play testing and the rewriting and everything to get to launch was redoing so much stuff that they had to hit the printers at some point, and so they couldn't add that ceiling on top. They lowered the floor.
That's right.
But then they're like, we've got to go to print. You're dealing with a big company, a massive that's shareholders need to see the profits, right? So you need to hit market on it, and they did not pull that up. So there's a level of it you can excuse, and you can be, you can understand. And even as a player playing in that system, especially as a DM, you can make up for that if you're experienced and you know where the cracks are, and you can kind of mortar them in yourself. The 2024 edition is what's very frustrating, is that they did not address that.
This was the opportunity after a decade, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that was almost marketed to us that way. There was like stuff on Twitter, and the way it was described, I'm not saying that they word for word promised that, but there was a lot of carefully worded marketing around this, implying that that was something that was going to be addressed. And then it just is not at all.
Agreed.
But innately, if you're already like tying yourself to the cart that is all old 2014 and newer books will still work in this edition, you just fucked yourself. Like, you can't do that and actually give yourself room to grow and to actually create big improvements, because you can't everything being retrofitted. It's just not going to work. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, let's be real here. In the grand scheme of hobbies and nerd hobbies, this is the cheapest freaking one. Okay. I mean, are we matchers today with sparkling ice?
You're on black cherry. I'm on black raspberry today.
Black raz. Yeah, I'm a black cherry man. You're a black raz. Not sponsored by Sparkling Ice, Fireball.
Though we will happily accept your sponsorship, Sparkling Ice. Happily reach out to us.
Yeah, I mean, we're already doing it for free. You might as well throw a couple shickles our way. I don't even remember what I was saying. I'm so excited about Sparkling Ice right now. I didn't wear my Sparkling Ice hoodie.
I agree with you. They didn't take the opportunity they had. They missed the opportunity where they could have expanded the window, but they didn't do it. Yes, that's what it comes down to.
Right.
All right. I want to talk about how I've personally addressed this, if there's anybody feeling the same way we are. And by the way, I think this is something that evolves over time. Okay. Because you don't naturally find the ceiling when you start. So if you're like a newer player, or you've only played a couple of games of fifth, chances are you're looking at me going, I've never experienced this.
Yeah, and that's fair. What the hell are you guys? What are you old men complaining about? And you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah, because I think the floor is lowered and it's fun and you get into it. Like, I've played a game, sometimes two, every week since the launch of the game for the past 11 years. And I have played dozens of characters in 5th edition, right? I've done campaigns going 1 to 20 and everything in between. Like, so I have pushed the bounds, right? I understand that I'm not probably the normal player. Yeah. So what have we done? Because as I said, we want to talk about tools you can use. If you're experiencing the same thing, if you want to break free, okay? If you're Freddie Mercury,
right,
and you want to break free, there are ways to do so. Here's things we've done. Number 1, attunement slots, that's gone.
Get out of here with that garbage.
Don't need it.
Yeah.
Don't need it. Yep. Okay. Number 2, I started grabbing old content and like let's say 2nd edition content, 3rd edition content, whatever, finding cool magic items and spells and things that I liked and just dropping them in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just drop them in and I'm like, we'll figure out how to make the rules work, right? Like I say, you find this thing, this crazy helmet or sword or whatever. Here's the original description. I think this is how it works now. Does that work for you? And they're like, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you always have an asterisk. Oh, if we find out that is not exactly working the way we want, we'll tweak it together. You know,
Right. Yeah,
again,
yeah.
you are not the enemy of your players. You are working together, right?
That's right.
And that can mean that it gets buffed for you, or that can mean that it gets tweaked and ends up working differently. Absolutely. Yeah, I do the
Yep.
same thing. I do a lot of custom magic items. We do a lot of weird stuff. I often like to do where I throw in weird magic items that are fun, descriptive things that are odd, and they can't quite figure out exactly what it does. And through time, that experimentation makes for a lot of fun, and it
Sure.
works itself out, you know?
I let people swap out their like subclass stuff that's just like being on the roller coaster for other things that they can get if they tell me it's a character priority, right? So if like in the course of playing their character, they're like, "Oh, I really like pets or something or whatever. Like I really like animals or something like that, right?" I'll be like and that they want to make that a major focus of their character. I'll be like, "Well, cool. Ditch this and this. Spend some time. You'll never get this at all. Like this feature is gone now." But
Yeah,
I'll give you these other things instead. I kind of work with them and I'm like, how's this feel? I'm like, and by the way, I'm not dictating. I'm
sure.
saying, here's what I think would be a good ability. What do you think? And then I expect them to send back to me and go, yeah, actually, I think I could we tweak it like this? Sure,
Right.
that sounds great. Are you happy with that? Yes, I'm happy. There's your new ability. Done.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, the nice thing is you have some level of framework to be found somewhere in the system and the extraneous books that have been put out. That you could find a general guideline of about how that could work, and let's customize it to your character. And that's my big thing, which I think is a strength of this. It does put a lot more weight on you as a DM to almost be like you're making your own RPG, but
Right.
it's 25% yours, 75% D&D 5th edition. And I think that's a good way to look at it, is that we have this, so I know this is not fly by the seat of my pants. I have something to lean back on, but I have control over enough of the uniqueness to it in my world and how we've found that what works, what doesn't, what we'd like to make it feel like a different game, or make it feel like the players have more onus in how they want to play their game and how their characters to be. And then you just you work together to make that role. I think the fact that it is fairly flat sets it up to be a good system for that, because you can play this game for 6 months and you've pretty much got it all figured out. And so
Right.
everyone around your table has a pretty keen understanding of the rules and the systems and how things work. Therefore, you can add on to that as you need pretty easily.
Yep.
Um, one thing I do is I really like to do things like skill challenges, modified skill challenges. Skill challenges, if you're not aware of what those are, were introduced in 4th edition. An amazing idea, terribly explained and executed in D&D 4th edition, but at their core, it's about setting up dramatic non-combat moments like, the guards are chasing you through a city. How do you get away, right? And you're utilizing all the players' different skills, quick thinking on the fly. Sometimes you make them roll dice. Sometimes you don't because they had an awesome idea, and you've got to get X number of successes before Y failures. And every time they either succeed or fail, the scene changes. And so you're going through dramatic moments. And I like to do those sometimes very loose, sometimes more rigid, so they understand the outcome. Sometimes they don't really know, and it's just run that way. So we can have dramatic moments, exciting moments, funny moments that are tied somewhat to the rules, so they feel like how their character would act and the kinds of things they would do. They can connect that to this moment and kind of build on relationships and build on solidifying who their character is. And that's a great thing that I really like to do. I like to do the skill challenges. I like to also, again, I'm going to beg, borrow, and steal something from 4th edition. I think the best thing that 4th edition ever did, we could talk about 4th edition and the amazing things that it did in a future episode, was way back when the internet was not as prominent and oft used. They had an encounter builder system for D&D 4th edition, and it was so much fun and so versatile and so flexible, and they broke out monsters into different kinds of roles. And so this kinds of monster was kind of a brute that was a bag of hit points, and you could hit him a lot, but you have to beat on him. And this kind of monster is a spellcaster, and it's got high wisdom save and high whatever. So you had these different categories. And so if I wanted to build a dramatic encounter, the system helped me realize that you need to have different kinds of monsters for different roles to make the counter exciting and dramatic, make it foster movement, foster decision making, not just use what's on your character sheet to make it dramatic. And it's not that I go back and use 4th edition monsters or whatever. It's more of I've learned how to build exciting encounters and boss fights.
Where there's variability to the experience.
Variability of the experience, yes. And so each fight should feel unique, but that doesn't mean it costs you 3 hours of prep time for every encounter you build. I'm not saying that, but I'm adding more depth to the kinds of what encounters feel like at the table.
Yeah. Let me give you another one. That like, because we talked about a lot of positives. You know, one of the things is if you do just like throw a bunch onto the PCs, they will become like, because the game is assumed that basically like you're already getting all of the stuff to make you stay on par. If you start building on that, they'll run above the expected norms of the game. The fact that the game has expected norms, right?
Right.
So like the other flip side of that is I'm not afraid to punish PCs. Okay. To like actually cause them real pseudo permanent penalties, things that they have to go on quests or adventures to get rid of, curses, diseases, punishments, injuries, all of that kind of stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Now, you want to be careful. You don't want to ruin someone's character. There is like all of this stuff requires, and I think that's why it's not there, because it requires a modicum of experience to use these tools properly. Right. When like it's a difference between making your own chair in your wood shop and assembling an IKEA chair.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like all the bolts have already been made and pre-sized and everything is there. And it just gives you have your one little Allen wrench and you're ready to go.
Yep.
You can assemble the IKEA chair. Right. But that's never going to be as rewarding as heading out to the wood shop and like fashioning a chair.
Yeah.
Right. Like truly building something. But it takes a lot more experience and wisdom and knowledge and time to actually build the chair. And ideally, you want to be in a world where both are possible. Right.
Both
you want to have
options.
the IKEA chairs for people who want that experience, but you also want to have the tools available.
Yeah.
To let people build their own chairs. And this is what we're missing right now. Everything's become IKEA. Right.
Yeah.
Now, the point I say that all to say, like, you know, I will cause permanent injury, penalty, punishment to the PCs, but they know, again, that we've established a trusted relationship where they know this is not forever. I'm usually not hitting them in the thing they love most, right? That is to say, like, I'm not making their character completely invalid. That's number one. Number two, they know that it's just a new adventure to get out of it. They have, you know, there's not now more things to find, discover, do, unlock that allows them to then find their way home, as it were, home. Right.
Yeah. The final thing I'll bring up that I think is really important, although sometimes hard to execute on, is because this edition is so flat, it is also very transparent in being able to run the numbers, right? So you can see that because the numbers don't continuously raise, it's pretty obvious to see that the rate in which offensive numbers go up is much faster than the numbers of defense that go up. That's for both for you and for the monsters. So how do you deal with this? Because by the time you get to level 10, everyone's always hitting, and you know everything's always landing. And I say everything always. I'm over exaggerating, but it goes
but I understand what you mean.
It goes from a coin flip to a 75% chance, and in a fairly short period of time. So how do you deal with that? Well, first of all, you've got to be able to deal with specific situations. And this can come back into introducing custom magic spells. This can deal with introducing custom magic items. This can deal with a lot of environmental situations where if you are just trying to kill the toads that are eyeball deep in the bog, now you can't always hit at the 75% rate that you're used to.
Right.
So using the environment, making everything feel unique to the situation that you're in to help balance out the way that numbers inevitably break in every RPG and always will. That's just the way it works. You need to be aware of the shortcomings and to find creative ways that keep the game fun that sometimes work to the player's benefits. You know, they have the high ground sometimes, Anakin, and vice versa, right? So keep them on their toes, let them get rewarded for interacting with the world to use the environment, the resources, the quick wits to their advantage, when otherwise this is not just a Street Fighter game where you put two people side by side right next to each other and say fight. If you do that, your players will quickly realize the flatness of the game.
Yep. I mean, here's a simple tip: have all hit points, double all damage. That's it. The game will get like markedly more interesting from that point forward. Okay. Because the problem, like, I agree completely with everything you just said. The problem is if you leave hit point numbers where they are and then you make it, because the game is expecting the PCs to hit 75% of the time. That's why everybody is a giant bag, Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade bag of hit points.
Right.
Okay. You go fight some knoll and it has 140 hit points. And I'm like, what is happening? What
right?
is this? What is this knoll made of? Neutron star?
Yeah.
Okay. And so like you've got to work against that stuff. So that way, when you do impose the penalties, the environmental stuff, things like that, like again, in the current edition I'm playing, things die fast. Things don't have a lot of hit points, both PCs and monsters.
Right.
So like when you introduce penalties in an unorthodox situation and stuff like that, that's okay. Because if they can get a few good hits in, they can bring it down. Right. But they've got to, but like if the thing has 140 hit points, you're making it so they hit a quarter of the time. Now it's just a recipe for like, okay, well, this fight just sucks now and goes on for 2 hours.
Right. Yeah, it's funny how that simple tweak that you're talking about there, and I have not tested that, but I do some tweaks similar. But like, think about how much more valuable that aids in all sorts of abilities and magic spells that can kind of take an enemy out of the fight for one round.
Exactly. It does so much. Half the hit points, double the damage. I'm serious. It's a very back of the napkin simple thing, but it's a huge way it changes the game to the positive.
Yeah. I mean, you can claim that's like, well, that makes it a DPS race, right? And you're not wrong in that. However, the buffs and the debuffs, the Tasha's Hideous Laughters and all that, they can make their first save, right? Because their saves are really high now, blah blah blah. They can make their first save, but I stopped them for one round of this 3 to 4 round fight from lopping off the head of our ranger, and I consider that a victory, right? Because my ranger was
single deflect attacks that you can do like, twice a day you get to stop and attack. Those are way more valuable when the attacks hit like a Mack truck, right? They actually feel really good as opposed to like, okay, I didn't take 12 damage. Like, all right, cool, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there can be some snowballing of like people dropping, and then you kind of get into the snowball of dropping, Lisa dropping,
sure.
because you're not attacking because you have to bring somebody.
5th edition's already a DPS race. Like, let's not pretend like it isn't, right? So whatever.
Yes, but it's a good rule of thumb and I guess what I'm saying here is I am not advocating that you do exactly what Vince said, but I would advocate for testing it out. If you're feeling uncomfortable, you're feeling something doesn't feeling right, you have all the control. It's your game to tweak things as needed and to find a way, try to find the path of least resistance to keep things fresh and fun.
Love it. Completely agreed.
Yep. Well, Vince, I think we just talked through how we could fix 5th edition in like a day and a half, right?
Yeah, just give us over. 6th edition right here. We got it. No issue.
Yeah, we can get this all straightened out for you. We got that ceiling. We can crank the ceiling, right? We're just blowing up the skylights and we can figure this out. Obviously, it's a much more complex thing than what we said, but I think the best takeaway that I have for today is that this is a great foundation. This edition is a great foundation, but don't run it out of the box. Find what works for you. Be willing to have open conversations with your table and realize that we're going to work together to do the minimal amount of tweaks that we need to do to kind of boost up our fun at the table.
Completely agreed. I'm on board.
All right, we're going to be back before you know it with another episode after Vince comes back from Gen Con with his giant pack mule filled with books, dice, miniatures, boxed games, and that body pillow we mentioned earlier. So we'll see you in a week, Gazeboids. Get out of here.
Bye-bye.